Welcome to the Zone Defense Podcast with Chris, Ryan, and Drew. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Zone Defense Podcast, on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Zone Defense Podcast. And be sure to ring that bell to get post notifications. Today we're drafting 2010s NBA players. It's our first kind of a new session of stuff we're going to do. Is a bunch of different NBA drafts, NFL drafts, and this is the first one that we decided to do, NBA 2010s players. A few rules first is you only get the player for the player they were during that decade. So if you, for example, for Tim Duncan, you don't get his MVPs and championships of the late 90s and 2000s. You only get the player he was from 2010 to 2016. You don't get anything beyond that. And also for players like Zion or Ja, you only get their 2019-2020 season. You don't get their potential or anything that they could be after the fact. So we're going from 2011 season all the way through the 2019-2020 season. Ryan, what's the draft order?
So we're going to be drafting in a snake draft format. And now if you haven't done any ESPN fantasy leagues and don't know what that is, all three of us are going to have one pick each round. And then after each team makes their pick in that round, the team that picked last will have the first pick in the next round. And then the team that picked first will have the last pick in that round. And then it keeps snaking back and forth like that.
And Ryan lucked out because we did a quick randomizer before this draft, and Ryan got the first pick.
You could, I don't know, you could say lucky because I got, I can't pick till last pick, second round. All the good guys are probably going to be gone by then. So
yeah, but you could also get – you did say that you might take a kind of a surprise first overall pick here. But you could take maybe the best player of all time, arguably. So any other rules that I missed out on, guys, before we get started with this?
No, I think we're all set. I'm excited to see who Ryan picked. He had that tilt pick. I was interested if he was actually going to take him, but I think he's going to take who he should take when he's on the clock. We'll see though.
Yeah, I'm ready to get started. So whenever you guys are ready, I'll make my selection.
All right. And after the fact, producer John is going to show off all of our big boards. We're going to talk about that because I do know that a lot of us have different things in different places. So it'll be kind of fun to check that out as well. And be sure to let us know at the end of the draft what you think of our teams. Maybe we'll throw a poll up there and you can vote on whose team was the best. But yeah, Ryan, without further ado, take it away. Who is your first overall pick of this 2010s NBA Player Zone Defense draft?
Okay, so I'm probably going to get a lot of crap for this. I'm going to go a little bit surprising here. I'm going to take Anthony Davis, my first.
Wow.
Was not
Wow.
So here's what I was thinking, right? I like where I'm at. I think I'm going to get a decent small forward, which is definitely a priority. I'm not a big fan of LeBron, so I wanted to pass on that. And I think I could either get someone at Kawhi's level maybe in the next round or something like that. But I think Anthony Davis, after him, there's a huge drop-off at the power forward position. So I think in terms of a shot blocker and a shot creator on all three levels on offense, I think he's too valuable to pass up. I wanted to make sure I got him, so I took him first.
Yeah, I mean, I did forget to mention there at the beginning that we're taking two players from each position. So that kind of I guess, makes your pick a little less crazy. But LeBron, I don't know.
It's going to pay off. It's going to pay off. I have a certain – I'm picking a team. I don't want I just don't want one player that's going to force up 30 shots a game. I want everyone involved. So it'll pay off in the end. You'll see.
All right.
Definitely not who I would have taken, but I can see the kind of method to your madness. I guess there are maybe two decent small forwards you can get in the power forward position. In your opinion, at least, might not be super deep, and Davis might be worth the pick. But I do know that he does have a lot of injury concerns too. So that might be a worry there.
I don't know that 1 year in New Orleans, but I don't know. I think he's an MVP type player. So
I mean, AD is a great player, but I guess I'm just going to jump into my next pick now because, he's not even the best player on his own team right now. And I'm going to be taking what should have been the 101, LeBron James. You can't pass up on that guy. I can't believe I'm going at the 102. I think your strategy may pay off, but not having LeBron on your team is, I don't know. I just think that it's gonna set me apart from you because he's easily the best player of the decade. He can do everything on the court. I don't even really need to explain it. He's won plenty of MVPs, plenty of finals, and he's been on a bunch of different teams and had success with all of them. So that's why I got him at 2. Great player.
Just
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say about LeBron. Like I said, I would have taken him with my first if I had the first pick. Yeah, I think we're not going to get into the GOAT debate, but I think he's probably the second greatest player of all time, behind Michael Jordan. Yeah, and his accolades speak for himself. He made the All-Star team every year of the decade, 3-time champ, 3-time Finals MVP, made the Finals almost every year. Was a really good defensive player. Yeah, he's currently leading the league in assists too, so he's a good playmaker as well.
Right, he can do everything. I mean, there isn't really much to say about LeBron. He's just such a good player. I think with that we can move on to Drew though. Who you got?
Yeah. So this is pretty tough because going in, I had 3 players in mind that I figured would probably be available for me, and all 3 of them are still on the board here. And I have back-to-back picks. I have the 3rd and the 4th pick, so I kind of got to make a decision. And I'm kind of going to stick with a bit of Ryan's philosophy here. And I'm looking at this point guard position, and there are some guys that are there that I think I could get. Actually, yeah, there's some point guards there that I think I could get a little bit later on. So I'm going to wait on point guard. And with my 3rd overall pick, I'm going to be selecting Mr. James Harden of the Houston Rockets. You look at his stuff. There is a player that I think is better than him, and I'm going to mention him with my 4th overall pick. But I like Harden, 8-time All-Star, scoring champ twice, won an MVP, won a 6th man award. A lot of people forget about that. Made it to the finals with the Thunder. Led the league in free throws 5 times, led the league in 3-pointers twice, led the league in field goals once. He's just a really good scorer, and his defense, although it was pretty brutal there for his first few years in Houston, it has improved a little bit. And yeah, he's just arguably the greatest, not the greatest, but the best individual one-on-one scorer this decade, behind maybe one player, and that's who I will end up taking with my 4th pick. But first, I know you guys aren't big Harden fans, so what's your take on this pick?
I'll start by addressing it. You know, as big of a non-fan I am of James Harden, I think he's a little bit overrated. He's still my #1 shooting guard on the board. I was actually thinking about taking him with the next pick. I can't argue the fact that he's been awesome for the whole decade, and he's got a lot of accolades. I think the thing that's maybe keeps him out of the top tier of just overall players to me is that he hasn't won a finals yet. But I mean, he's still got this year if they end up playing, and he's had a lot of other success, so you can't really knock him too much for that in an all-decade team. I think it was good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Appreciate going off what Chris said, I don't know. I mean, we all know he's a great scorer, one of the greatest isolation scorers of all time, but I just can't, like Chris said, I can't get over the winning fact. I think he's proven, and D'Antoni, I mean, they've proven that their method, the isolation, the 30 shots a game, it just doesn't work when it comes down to winning stuff. I like his offensive game, but I don't know. I think there's honestly, I wouldn't have taken him with my first shooting guard pick, but I'm not going to reveal that. I have him first on my board, but I would have taken someone else, to be honest, at the shooting guard position.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, if in terms of team success, there are definitely guys that are above Harden in the shooting guard category. But if you just look at individual player, Harden, I think, is hands down the top guy at shooting guard, and it does. There are a few guys that when I was doing my research, I was actually kind of surprised that they had as good of a decade as they did. But I feel like the drop off from point guards, that was kind of who I was looking at, was another point guard who is still very much on the board here. I think we all know what his name is. I feel like the drop off there is not as steep as the drop off when it comes to shooting guards. So I wanted to scoop up Harden. But without any more delay, with my 4th overall pick, this player, he was probably the most divisive player of the decade. He went from arguably being the most popular player in the league in 2010 to maybe the most hated player in the league by decade's end. Without a doubt, though, aside from 2 injury-riddled seasons, he was probably the 2nd best player in the NBA. I'm not a big fan of him anymore. I used to be a diehard fan of his, but now I'm not that big a fan of his anymore. But you can't deny the talent. So without further ado, with the 4th overall pick, I am selecting easy money sniper Kevin Durant, 4th overall.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That's a good pick right there. Now, I honestly, if he would have dropped, I might have considered taking him. Like, just have loading up small forwards because he's so good.
Yeah, because like I know Ryan's making the argument here that the small forwards they're very deep, and I do think there's one more guy that's kind of on the board there, but I feel like LeBron and KD were clearly the two top small forwards. In the other positions, it was much more of a debate. I think Harden was clearly the top shooting guard, and Durant was clearly the top small forward, and the other positions were kind of a debate.
Right.
And it really kind of just fell right into my lap. I'm really extremely happy that I got these two guys, teamed them back up from their time in OKC together. And yeah, I'm really happy about it.
And they should have a little team chemistry together. But yeah, the thing about KD, he's really close to LeBron in terms of just pure talent. And I think his legacy may be a little bit askew after he went to the Warriors, but you still can't deny he may be the best pure offensive player in NBA history. It's an argument, that's for sure. Maybe he's not, but he's definitely in that discussion. And he's a great defender too. Can't forget about that.
He made the All-Star game 9 times, won 2 championships, won 2 Finals MVPs, won a regular season MVP, won the All-Star game MVP twice, led the league in scoring 3 times, 8-time All-NBA player. And he also was really good defensively too there. Once he went to the Warriors, was kind of a sneaky, really good blocks player. And in addition to all the great stuff he could do offensively. And honestly, if he would have stayed healthy there in the finals, they probably would have won 3 in a row. Easily.
Oh yeah.
So
I would agree with that for sure. Yeah, he's just uber talented in terms of just pure. He's just a basketball player. That's flat out what it comes down to. Like, he can do everything, and I'm excited to see how long he can keep it going for. But I think I agree with Ryan in terms of that the position's deep, but I think there's one more guy that's kind of in this here, and then I think there is a drop off, but there's still really good small forwards. So like, I understand the philosophy of skipping out on them because there's still some guys that I would definitely want on my team and could start. But I'll jump into my next pick. I feel like I don't know if I really want to make this pick right now because I agree with Drew as there's a lot of good point guards, but I can't leave Steph Curry on the board for Ryan. I'm gonna take him here. I gotta take him. He's just he's had a dynamic decade. He's been the best point guard in the NBA easily in the decade. I don't think there's an argument.
Okay, all right.
I mean, you can't win you can't win 3 finals. You can't win 2 MVPs, 6 All-Stars. The best 3-point shooter in NBA history. I just really don't think there's I don't think there's an argument. I think there's a significant tier break after him, and then there's a bunch of solid players that are all in the same category, I guess.
I mean, I think if you look at team success, there is no doubt that Curry was the best, and is also just how he revolutionized the game.
Right.
But when you look at kind of individual success, there are a few guys that I got my eye on that might kind of give him a run for his money a little bit.
Yeah, the next guy I'm going to take, in fact, I think he's the better all-around player, better defensive player. Curry's not great on defense. We've known he had that ankle issue earlier in his career. Arguably, I'm not going to deny the fact that he, team success, greatest point guard of the decade, greatest shooter of all time, great guy to have on your team. But I think this guy that I'm going to take next is better than Curry all around.
All right, let's hear that then.
So yeah, with that said, I'm going to take.
Sit it up there. I was anxious to hear what you
had.
So that being said, with my second pick overall, I'm going to take Chris Paul.
Ooh, all right. Chris Paul, he's definitely in the conversation, but I really still think it's a fight for number 2 at that point, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, you can have a different opinion on Chris Paul, but in terms of team success, I wouldn't say just been a choker, but just their whole the whole team. Any team he's been on, they haven't really done much in the playoffs. And I think that's the backbreaker right there for him.
Yeah, no doubt. They haven't had the same success that Curry's had. You can argue that Curry doesn't have Thompson and Durant, but he did have Blake Griffin in his prime as well as DeAndre Jordan. So I mean, there is no excuses for that. But I think in terms of, I think he's made over 5 all defensive teams. So he's a great defender. We know how great of a distributor or ball handler he is. And in terms of like a locker room guy, a leader that you want on your team that can kind of just get along with everyone, I think he's one of the top guys that comes to mind off first thought. So, and I think he'll fit really well with Anthony Davis. That would be a nice lob combo. So,
Lob, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
that's a fact right there. That's just
Before,
it's a good pick.
before I talk about my thoughts on Ryan's pick, I was laughing there because I'm not sure if you guys saw, but it was Christopher Paul there for a second because of the cool kind of stuff we got going on with the spreadsheet that producer John's doing. But that was pretty funny to watch, John. Thank you for that laugh. But anyway,
that was great. That was great. I was trying not to laugh too while Ryan was talking.
Ryan's pick. I would just say this: I'm very happy that you took Chris Paul because there's an opening here that the guy that I want might still be available when it comes to my pick. But I'll give the listener and the audience a little bit insight on our kind of pre-meeting or pre-show meeting talk. Chris Paul was, I think, supposed to be your first overall pick there, Ryan. You mentioned there a couple times.
Okay, I was not being serious about that. I was just trying to throw you guys off.
You did throw me off. When I made my big board, I planned on you taking Chris Paul first overall, but he is a good player. I do kind of stick with kind of what Chris said. He doesn't really have the same amount of team success, obviously, that Curry had. Or the MVPs. I mean, I think I kind of forgot to mention there with Curry, he's the only player outside of LeBron to win multiple MVPs this decade.
Right.
But Chris Paul, he is a really good assist guy, good steals, good defender.
Great scorer.
Great scorer. I think he's kind of an underrated leader too. I mean, you kind of see what he did there with OKC this past season before he got suspended. I think they were like a 5 seed, so that's pretty impressive there. I think for like Chris Paul kind of was at the league in a weird time because his prime was kind of like the end of the 2000s and the beginning of the 2010s. So like he's one of the best point guards ever. But when you do one of these drafts, it's kind of hard to kind of do that.
I kind of want to say something. I kind of want to say something about that, about Chris Paul. You may be right that his prime was then, but I think a really big thing with him that I maybe didn't even think about until right now is the fact that he's been awesome this whole decade. Whereas there's been players that took him a couple years into the decade. Like I don't think Curry was awesome the whole decade. I think there was a couple years where Chris Paul was easily the better player, but he's been a top 5 point guard every single year of the decade. And I don't think there's any debate about it. Even this year, he's still awesome. He's probably the 3rd or 4th best point guard in the NBA to this day. So I think that is that is actually a good pick. I didn't really think about it in that way. Whereas he's just been awesome the whole decade, very consistent, and it's a good player to lead your team at the point guard position.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Chris. I was just going to mention that, but so I believe I have the next pick as well. Right?
You do.
Hey, real quick. I did want to say real quick. Curry does have injury concerns, and CP3 he got hurt like a couple times in the playoffs, but other than that, he was pretty durable. So, all right, sorry, Ryan. Without further ado.
Yeah, no problem. So I'm gonna take a small forward here. I need a small forward. There's an obvious choice right here. I'm gonna take Kawhi Leonard with my 3rd overall pick.
Yeah, that's a good pick. That was the guy that I was kind of alluding to there. The 3rd guy that I could argue was kind of in that KD LeBron range, but not quite. Mainly just because he had that one loss season with San Antonio, obviously, when he was fighting with Popovich. But he won 2 championships. That's the same amount as Durant, 2 Finals MVPs, same amount as Durant. Only made 4 All-Star games because like I said, he kind of had some issues there with Popovich and the Spurs there. But he also won the Defensive Player of the Year twice, which I think a lot of people forget. Also won the All-Star Game MVP. Really good player there. Really good defender. Maybe the best defensive player, defensive small forward at least, and one of the top defenders of the 2010s period.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more there. I think Kawhi is almost it's not a contradiction, but it's almost the exact opposite player that CP3 was. Like Drew said, he only made 4 All-Star games throughout the decade, which is a lot less than most of the guys on this list so far. But his highs in this decade have been better or equal to, if not better than some guys like LeBron or KD or Curry. So I think I think he fits right into that number 3 spot at the small forwards. And I think he is well into that tier for sure. I think there's a definite significant drop off after him.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head here. So I had LeBron, KD, and Kawhi. That was in that order.
Yep.
So
that's same here.
And after that, it was like Paul George and then Giannis. And then I really didn't know where to go after that. I kind of just left it up to bench. But yeah, there's definitely a huge drop off after that. And I really like how Kawhi's evolved his game. I mean, first, he was just known in the league as a lockdown defender, but he's really taken his shot from a mid-range scorer to now he can score at the 3-point line with consistency, and it's great off the drive, great attacking the rim. So I like him as an all-around player that fits well on my team.
Right, definitely. I agree with that. I'm kind of on tilt now because you brought up Giannis's name, but I have him down as power forward. I think.
Yeah, you could. He plays power forward, so I mean, you could
Yeah,
theoretically.
I actually had him as both. I mean, I think part of this is that you can say what position you want to play.
As long as
Does
it
that
makes
make
sense. We don't want like 2K out here where we're putting LeBron at point guard or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, even though
All
he
right.
kind of did play point guard there a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So, all right. Here's my theory right here. I'm gonna take Giannis here at the power forward position. I don't think he stacks up as well. Like, I don't think he's in front of any of those three at small forward, but I think he fits right after AD as in terms of power forwards, and that's what position I would. Oh, yeah, he's got to be power forward for me. And he's kind of like Kawhi in that he hasn't had as long of like stretch as like guys like LeBron and them, but I feel like he's ascending. He's ascended the last 3 years, and lack of team success that kind of hurts him a little bit. But I feel like him and LeBron would fit really well together on a team, and I don't know. I really like having both of them there. That feels crazy to me.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I was actually looking at him with one of my picks coming up here at power forward, so you kind of stole my pick there. So good job, Chris. But
Yeah, let's go.
yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, he consistently got better every year. We might have been looking at him as a potential 2-time MVP winner had the season concluded. If it still concludes, who knows? And also maybe a 1-time NBA champ because the Bucks had a legitimate shot at that finals. So
Absolutely.
and I know he kind of was a late bloomer a little bit because he kind of came on there at the end of the decade. But all in all, I mean, he's a really, really good player.
I feel like my other two have a lot of sustained success in the NBA over the decades. So having Giannis right now, or having his last 3 seasons, it feels good to match with the other two, and I'm very excited. I would be very excited to have this team. It'd be pretty incredible.
Ryan, do you have any more thoughts on Giannis, or can I jump into my?
Go ahead, jump in your next pick. That was a good pick, Chris.
All right, so
Thank you.
as I mentioned before, I was happy when Ryan took CP3 because just to kind of give you all a little bit of insight, I had Curry, Harden, then this player, and then Chris Paul as my top 4 point guards. It really surprised me when I did some research because he was a little bit lower on my board until I did some research and I realized that he was a really good player. 9-time All-Star this decade, won an MVP, could have won 2 MVPs, 2 All-Star MVPs, just an overall really good player. Triple-double machine, and he's just amazing. So with my 9th overall pick, we're bringing the band back together. We got Russell Westbrook right here with the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Interesting. Very interesting.
I did not think you were going to take. I thought there was another point guard you were going to go with there, but I'm definitely not faulting you for the pick. He's definitely got the accolades that some of these higher picks got. I think some of the knocks on him are more like that he's not really a team player. He goes out there and just pads stats and stuff, but you really can't argue with the 9 All-Star appearances, MVP awards, and just the fact that he's just an absolute monster when it comes to triple doubles. And he's basically the triple double went from something that was a rare feat to something he did every night. And then it's not even a big deal. It's like, wow, triple double, who cares?
Yeah,
every night, so it doesn't matter.
And part of that does have to do with the way the NBA is played right now. And he definitely did like kind of stat pad there for a while, which you kind of have to take that into account. But I kind of see how he played with Harden this past season, and he was definitely, I think, maybe better than Harden was for long stretches of the season, probably outside of those first 2 months. And I mean, I'm pairing Westbrook, Durant, and Harden back together. I mean, 3 MVP winners through this decade. They made a finals together back in the 2012 before the Thunder kind of blew it up there because they didn't want to pay Harden money, but we don't have to get into that right now. And maybe we combine this again, and maybe they keep it together, and we can win a championship. Because I'm really excited about this. So now we get into the kind of the gray area here because I don't really know who I want to take with this next pick. I'll be completely honest.
We're starting to get to that point in the draft where everyone's just kind of in the same tier now. We've basically eliminated all of the elite, I would say the elite options for the decade.
Because I'm looking at no one's taken a center yet, and I'm looking at these centers, and there's not
Center
a
is
guy
pretty
that really
thin.
Yeah.
popping up, but is kind of thin. Power forward, I can make a case that I can kind of wait on power forward. I feel like I'm leaning towards center, but there's also a shooting guard that I really like that I want, but I feel like I don't want to waste that. So I'm gonna go center. I'm debating between two guys. It's really tough, but
the worst guy.
I think I'm gonna go with the guy who is the two guys I'm looking at right now. One guy is, I would say, more talented, definitely had a higher peak there at the beginning of the decade, but kind of a head case. I do like him. One of my favorite players. Kind of had a bit of a resurgence here at the end this past season, but I don't know. I like this other guy a lot. He won a championship this past season with Toronto, 3-time All-Star, won a Defensive Player of the Year award, was a really good grit and grind guy. And I just like him, and I want him here. So with the 10th overall pick, might be kind of controversial, but I'm taking Marc Gasol of the Toronto Raptors.
You jerk!
Are you gonna go with?
I'm just thinking about taking him too.
Gasol's the first guy on my center list. Why?
He's my number 2. I was gonna take him over the number 1.
He was number 2 on my list behind Anthony Davis because I had Anthony Davis.
Davis. I thought you were talking about Boogie because like head case. I was like, oh, that's definitely Boogie.
That's who I thought you were. Well, I know who you're talking about actually now, but
on my board I had Anthony Davis, Marc Gasol, and then I had the guy that I was referring to as the head case, and then I had DeMarcus Cousins. But Marc Gasol, I mean, if you look at his peak, he was just solid all decade. Really good defender, good rebounder, made 2 All-NBA teams. Like I said, won a championship there with the Raptors this past season. And I just like him, and I think he's the perfect guy to kind of fit with Westbrook, Durant, and Harden because he gets rebounds, plays good defense, and he's also can kind of step back there and hit the 3. So the center position is kind of thin, and I really wanted to get Gasol or the other guy that I won't say yet, and I'm happy I got Gasol.
Yeah, that's a really good pick for sure. I definitely am upset you took him there, and now I'm going to end up. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to play the draft where I was going to take Marc Gasol with my next pick, but now that I'm going to have to wait on center. So I'm going to play the game and just hope Ryan doesn't take the guy I want to take, and I'm going to take my shooting guard, Klay Thompson. Can't let him fall any further. I'm going to pair the Splash Bros together, and his is more of just a team success thing. He's definitely not the same player as Curry, and he's more of he's still he's a star, borderline superstar player, but you got to factor in he's not the number 1 on his own team, and a couple years wasn't even the number 2. He's just such a pure shooter, man. Having him and Curry together just feels awesome, man. And he's an underrated defender. He definitely plays good defense for them. Definitely a lot better than Curry in that regard. And I think he fits in this team well because I have a lot of good passers and some shooting. And I really think that this team could be crazy. So I'm taking Klay here, and I'm hoping that the guy I want comes back to me, and I'm going to be very upset if he doesn't.
Yeah, you got it. You go first.
Go I was just going to say, is everyone pairing up old teammates again but me? It seems like everyone's
I didn't plan on it. Like I said, this was a tilt pick for me. I wasn't planning on taking Thompson here. I was going to hope he came back to me, but I was like, well, I don't have a shooting guard, so I'm going to take him, and I like him more than the center I like. So I guess I'll just kind of let you in on that. I'm going to take a center if you don't take the guy I want, but I'm kind of expecting you to steal my pick.
We'll see.
That was okay. I let you go first last time, right? I'm going to go first this time.
No, I was just going to say, we'll see. Go ahead.
Okay. Klay was a guy that I was looking at that I might have taken there instead of Gasol, but I already had a shooting guard, and I was kind of just going to put him at my backup because he was still available. So that was a good pick. He has the team success, really good defender, made a bunch of All-Star teams. Good pick.
Can we make trades? I wish we could make trades. I really want Gasol, man.
We can talk about that. We can talk about that at the end of the draft. Maybe make a few trades before we look at the board and discuss. But Ryan, you're on the clock again. Unless you got any more thoughts on Klay Thompson, but overall good player. I do have I have a jersey of his down here somewhere. But.
Yeah, Drew's crazy. He's got like 150 jerseys of NBA players, and I respect his jersey collection a lot. I've got 3.
Appreciate that, Chris. All right, Ryan,
So yeah, this is I think this is a very underrated guy throughout the decade. First brought into the league, elite lockdown defender. He's really developed his offensive game. Very, very passionate, very enthusiastic. That may have rubbed some people in the wrong way in a certain city. And I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm just going to go ahead and select Jimmy Butler here.
Yep, it's a good pick.
Good pick. Good
I
pick.
was,
He was one of those. You go first, Chris.
I was just gonna say he was my next shooting guard after if I didn't get Thompson, I was gonna take Butler. You know, he's just pure lockdown defender, man. And you know, maybe he doesn't have as much offensive firepower as some of the other guys on this list, but you know, he really makes up with it in just pure effort on the court. And you know, he does score 20 a game, so he's not a slouch on offense. Maybe he's not as efficient as some of these other guys in the modern NBA, but he's just a great all-around player. And I really like that pick.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And I, in terms of putting the ball in somebody's hand with like 10 seconds to go and you need the game-winning shot, I definitely feel like he's developed into one of those guys that is just a killer when it matters most. So,
absolutely, it's a good pick. Who do you got for your next one?
Well,
real quick, I just wanted to add real quick. Yeah, good pick. He was. I think I mentioned earlier that there was a shooting guard that I was. When I did some research, I was surprised. He really kind of jumped up my board because he had a really good decade and was really good defensively, both sides of the ball. Yeah. All right. Sorry to cut you off. Who's your next pick?
You're good. Let's see. I really want to get solid center that really kind of foils my plans. I could go. I could take another small forward and move AD to center. Maybe I could do that.
I mean, I would be okay with that as long as Chris is okay with that.
Doesn't really matter. It's fine with me. I don't really
care. Okay.
I did Davis as both.
Okay, so so I'm going to take Paul George here. I'm going to move Kawhi to power forward, and then Anthony Davis plays center.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a perfectly. You know, Kawhi is also a player that plays power forward. You know, a decent amount. But I do like the Paul George pick a lot. You know, he's not in that tier as those other power forward or small forwards like we said before, but he's still a really good player. And you know, there's no denying his defensive impact. And I feel like he's a pretty similar player to Jimmy Butler. To be honest, I don't think he's super different to him.
I think he's a little bit better scorer and shooter, more consistent.
Yeah, he is. No,
other than that, they're very similar. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost won the MVP last year. I think he was like third in the final vote.
Third or fourth.
Yeah. Obviously, you have kind of that injury concern with him because of the gruesome leg injury he had. But he's kind of rebounded from that nicely, and he was another guy like Butler that was lower on my board. And then once I started doing some research, he kind of jumped up. But real quick, John, Kawhi's a power forward, not shooting guard.
Yep.
I just want to say, have fun scoring on my team. If you look at who I got defensively,
I know. I'm looking at it, and I don't like it. Your team has some absolute studs on defense. And
defensive guy,
I should have taken Giannis, and then that would like two shot blockers, him and Anthony Davis. Oof.
I think you got like arguably the best defensive player at each position for this decade on your team.
Yeah, maybe. Oof.
See, I'm going to make all right, my next pick is going to maybe change that in terms of the center because I think my guy is the better defender. You know, this is more of an early riser in the decade, so you got to factor in that he hasn't been that great recently, but he has had a little bit of a resurgence lately, and I think this was talking about. I'm going to take Dwight Howard here.
Yep. Yeah,
he doesn't exactly fit the shooting on my team, but, you know, I really think this is – you know, you take his early part of the decade, you know, he was just a freak athlete on both ends and, you know, an impressive shot blocker. And just, I feel like I had to stop the slide of Dwight Howard. You know, he was my number one. I probably would have taken Gasol over him. But, you know, on this team, doesn't really fit my scheme. But I feel like I can't pass on the early decade talent of that man.
Yeah, I completely agree. He was a really good player. Early on there in the decade. The only big problem with him, though, is just the locker room stuff. I already kind of got that. You kind of talked about it. That was the guy that I was looking at when I took Gasol. But I already kind of got some fiery personalities and Durant and Harden, so I don't really need Dwight Howard as well. So Marc Gasol, I needed an adult in the locker room. That's why I didn't take Howard. But He was a good player. Kind of got some MVP votes there too. I think the year that Rose won the MVP. But,
Right. I think after this, after Drew picks here, we should summarize each of our teams. You know, just kind of look at what we've all got. You know, what we're all looking at. You know, because we're gonna be starting the reserves after Drew picks this first one. So I think we should do a little summary after that.
Yeah.
That
So
sounds good.
again, I don't really know who I'm going to take here because you're making it sound like I'm going to take a power forward, and
No, you don't have to take one.
power forward position though. There's some guys here that I still like that are still available, and then I might just wait because I don't need to pick one right now. And
Sure.
same thing with shooting guard. So I may go. I'm gonna go point guard. I'm gonna go point guard here, and I'm gonna take a guy. I'll kind of show my big board after we're done here. I kind of split up my stuff into different tiers, all my different players for each position. This is the final guy I had in the Chris Paul, Westbrook, James Harden tier. He really kind of flung up my boards there after I did some research. So with the 15th overall pick, I'm gonna take Mr. Kyrie Irving of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Boston Celtics, and Brooklyn Nets.
Go. Pumped you just
Kind of going against my previous statement of I don't want head cases on my team, but he won a championship there with LeBron, but he made arguably the most important shot of the decade when he kind of had that clutch three at the end of Game 7 there in 2016 against the Warriors. Made two All NBA teams. All-Star Game MVP, and probably the best handles of anybody this decade.
Oh yeah, no
and
doubt.
Having him back up Westbrook, I like that. And it was more of kind of just I didn't want to see him slide, and the fact that he was still kind of just chilling there. I feel like there was kind of a drop off after Kyrie, in my opinion at least. So I kind of wanted to shore up my backup point guard position.
It's fair. It's a good pick. You know, I'm pretty happy you picked him. There's a couple guys I'm looking at that I thought you were going to take. You know, there's two different guys. I don't think there's as big of a drop-off between him and the next two guys on my list. So I'm for in terms of my own.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know who you're going to take.
You-
I think
you
the
do know
guy,
who I'm gonna take.
I think we already talked about, I had him lower than you guys previously, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so Ryan, do you have any thoughts on Kyrie Irving, or do you want to look at the
I left him off my list. I can't deal with people that
wow.
are cancerous in the locker room. I just can't deal with that.
Okay, maybe I should have waited then. Maybe that's why he was slipping. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with him. I feel like it's a winning culture right there. I got in my team. I'm taking talent over locker room. Marc Gasol's an adult in the room, so I'll be okay. But, all right. Yeah. So John's got on the screen right now. He's got our team so far. We're halfway through this draft. Ryan, how about you kind of break down your team? We already kind of talked about it. It's got a lot of really good defenders, but what else do you need? What are you happy with?
Yeah,
Like
so on first glance, I'm definitely, people are gonna say I'm definitely the worst team, but I want to emphasize looking closer. I think working as a cohesive unit, I think this team is impossible to score on. First of all, I do think I lack some scoring, like a knockdown shooter like Steph or Clay.
Yeah,
I definitely need some
right.
scoring off the bench, but I just want to emphasize I think this team would work really well as a unit, and defensively they'd be tough to really tough to score on.
Yeah, no, I agree with. I like Ryan's team a lot. I think maybe his Achilles heel is going to be the lack of a really true number one shooter on his team. But he makes up for it with his just absolutely clamps on defense. All those guys are excellent defenders. And Butler, George, and Kawhi. You can't really argue with that. Maybe a couple of those guys don't have as big of a name. Like CP3 and versus me taking Curry. But he's right up there. He's definitely in that tier of point guard where he just was dominant all decade. So you can't forget about that with his team. I'll go through my team super fast. It's Curry and Clay just feels like an absolute it's gonna be like the Warriors where they just shoot, and then you just add LeBron and Giannis to that are just gonna find ways to kick it out and take it to the rack. And then Dwight doesn't maybe fit on my team as well as Ryan's cohesive unit, but I feel like his just shot blocking ability was a thing that my team was really lacking and I needed.
Yeah, I'll break down my team here at the end. I already kind of mentioned it. I'm kind of just taking talent over maybe cohesive locker room culture, maybe the opposite of Ryan. I'm glad I kind of re-teamed up. Going in, I really wanted to team up the old OKC big three of Westbrook, Durant, and Harden. I was able to accomplish that, and I'm happy about that. Then we got Marc Gasol, who kind of judging by everyone's kind of reaction, he might have been the best center, at least behind Anthony Davis in the draft available. And then I got Kyrie Irving there, who I had higher on my board than you guys, so maybe I should have waited on him. So I'm kind of regretting that pick, but he's a good solid backup point guard, and I'm happy about that. So.
All right, let's jump into Drew's 6th overall pick.
So I'm gonna be honest. The whole time you guys were talking, I was trying to figure out who I wanted to take with this pick, and it's tough because like I said, I still don't have a power forward, and I think I'm just gonna wait on that. I was thinking about maybe taking a small forward here, and I think no, that's not what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go shooting guard. I'm gonna go backup shooting guard here. And I'm gonna take 7-time All-Star, 2-time NBA champ this decade, 3-time All-NBA. I think we talked about him briefly at the top of the show. Yeah. Chris and I seem to be high on him, and Ryan seemed to maybe be a little bit lower on him. I'm taking Dwayne Wade. We need some winners. We need some, like I said, adults in the locker room, and I think Dwayne Wade's a winner, and I'm going to take him as my backup shooting guard behind James Harden.
Yeah, that was actually going to be was a definite consideration for my next pick. I really Dwayne Wade is probably my favorite player of all time. I'm a really big fan of Wade, one of the best shooting guards in the NBA's history. He's just such a all-around scorer. Not the greatest shooter on this list, but he can definitely get it done, especially from mid-range. And he's a good defender. He can pass a little bit. He's got a decent. He even mixes it up inside. I think I might be mistaken, but I think he averaged over like a block a game in his career, which is kind of impressive for a 2-guard. That's impressive, and not to mention the fact that he's just an athletic monster for 95% of his career.
Yeah, I really like the pick, Drew. I don't know how you can dislike this guy. Just a really likable guy in the locker room, great athlete, does anything that you ask of him. I really like the pick there.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. He was my. I used to have a Dwayne Wade jersey, but it got too small, so I was going to bring that out, but I wasn't able to. He was my 3rd shooting guard on my list, behind Clay and Harden, and I had him one spot above Jimmy Butler.
That was my exact order.
So good, nice, Chris. And he was kind of, in my opinion, he was kind of like Chris Paul, where his peak was kind of like the latter half of the end of the 2000s and then like the early half of the 2010s. But early 2010s there, when he was with LeBron, he was a borderline MVP candidate there.
Absolutely.
And he did kind of have that brief kind of hiatus where he kind of fell off the map with Chicago and Cleveland for that half a year that a lot of people try to forget about. Then he kind of had a bit of a resurgence his last 2 seasons in Miami. It was a really good 6th man there for him before he retired.
Right.
And I just need leadership, and I need a champion in my locker room to kind of help with Durant and Kyrie, mainly are the 2 guys I'm worried about, and I feel like Dwayne and Gasol will kind of do a good job at kind of handling.
I feel like Wade's gonna be that guy that kind of pushes 2 different sides, but has to hold people back in your locker room because they're all at each other's throats. But Wade and Gasol are in there just fighting in the trenches, just trying not to let them get at each other.
Yeah,
I like that's interesting.
Thanks. All right, Chris, who are you taking with your first pick?
Right, so this might be a little bit of, I don't know if it's a reach exactly, but I definitely think Kyrie's the better player of these. But I got to stay true to the brand. My favorite player in the NBA now, and probably when it's all said and done, will be my favorite player of all time.
Don't do it, Chris.
Damian Lillard is going to be my pick here. Not as much team success as some of these guys, but I think in terms of just pure scoring, having him and Curry as my point guards, when Curry needs a break or he gets injured, inevitably he will. You take Damian Lillard out there, and there isn't really much of a drop off in terms of offensive output. He's just he's one of the best shooters on this list, and he kind of further strengthens my my backcourt. Just a lot of firepower there, and I like Lillard as my backup here.
Well, thanks for stealing my next pick, Chris, but I really like that selection. In terms of guy, put the ball in your hands, last shot. I mean, he's done it so many times. Great shooter. You really got some nice firepower at the guard position. I will admit that.
I like it. I'm a big fan of it right now. And Lillard,
I'm looking forward to when we reveal our big boards because I actually had, so obviously I already said I had Kyrie above him, but then I had 3 other guys that have not been selected yet above Damian Lillard.
Wow.
I have Lillard at 2.
Yeah, I have him
Might be
at
a
4.
Might be a little high.
So I'll be like, I'm looking forward to talking about that. But yeah, I just, with him, I think it was, you kind of already touched on it, the lack of kind of team success. I did definitely put an emphasis on some team success. And it was in this, like I said, I kind of split up into tiers. I had 4 guys in this tier, and Lillard and the other 3 guys, it could kind of be kind of move, you can move them all around. And with Lillard, I feel like he had a lot of individual success, but I don't know. He just lacked the team success for my liking.
The thing that kind of, to kind of touch on that, not a lot of overall team success, but you gotta think about a couple of shots he's hit in the playoffs to get them to another series. He's been able to put the team out absolutely on his back for multiple series, and just take the game over and hit shots like he did against the Thunder, hit shots like he did against the Rockets, basically all series. And I think that's a thing. I don't think he's a choke artist in the playoffs or anything. I think he plays better in the playoffs than he does in the regular season. But the team he's on, you gotta knock. I mean, he's not the Curry that can just carry the team to a finals or whatever, But
yeah,
team isn't as good around him. You got to factor that in a little bit too.
I was going to mention that too. He does hit a lot of clutch shots, and you got to take that into account. Like I said, he was a little bit lower on my board, but he is still a good pick, I think.
That's fair. All right, Ryan, go ahead and take your picks after I stole yours.
So I need some scoring here. I need a shooter. I'm going to go with a walking bucket. I'm going to take Bradley Beal here.
Yeah,
nice pick.
It's a good pick. He was in the conversation here after Drew took Dwayne Wade. If I wouldn't have taken Lillard, I probably would have gone Bradley Beal here because he's just another, like you said, a walking bucket, can kind of do it all, and he's no slouch on the defensive side of the ball either. I think he's a pretty decent defender.
No, yeah, I mean the one knock on him, no team success really. At all. Yeah,
right.
And he did have those injury concerns early in his career, but like these last few years, he's really been turning it on. He's staying consistent, so I like what he's developed into.
Very solid player.
Yeah. With him, I did have him a little bit lower on my board too. But a big thing with that was just because, like you already talked about, Ryan, was just the team success. But he was a really good player and really kind of came on as one of the best shooting guards in the league. Probably one of the most underrated players in the whole NBA towards the last few seasons of the decade. So good pick. If Wade and one other guy that I still have on my board here, if they hadn't dropped, I would have probably scooped him up there in the later rounds. But good pick, Chris, or Ryan, whoever took him.
Yeah, so I got a back-to-back, don't I, here? Oh, God.
Yep.
All right, well, I really wanted Dame and Bradley with my next 2 picks, but that's not happening.
Go.
Oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
Go.
All right, I'm gonna take Blake Griffin. I know the injury concerns, but I think these last few years he's really developed his game into an all-around offensive player. We know what kind of athlete he is. I know the questions about the team success, but I think in the open floor, off the bench, in transition, I like Blake Griffin on my team.
Yeah, no, that's a good pick.
I was hoping he would.
All right, go ahead, Drew. I'll let you talk. I went first.
I was hoping he'd fall to me for my next pick. So, good pick, Ryan.
Thanks.
Yeah, Blake Griffin. It's cool you paired him with Chris Paul again. That's another Lob City finisher for you guys. That's gonna be pretty fun to watch. That connection. But Griffin, there is a couple guys at the power forward position that I have over him, but he's definitely the most athletically gifted out of the remaining guys that I'm looking at over here. There's no argument there. He's and later in his career, he's not a bad shooter anymore either. So he can kind of do it. He can do a little bit of everything on the offensive end. Not the best defender, but he's not terrible either. It's a good pick. I like it.
Yeah, of my power forwards, he was second, only behind Davis in terms of all-stars. He actually made 5 All-NBAs too, which a lot of people forget about. The big thing with him was just injuries. If he could stay healthy, he would probably if he would have stayed healthy, he probably would have been the best power forward on my team, or on my big board at least. But yeah, I guess the team success. But actually, there's really not a lot of power forwards that have a lot of team success and as much individual success that Blake had. So, and he's definitely going to put some butts in the seats too.
Absolutely, yeah.
The only thing I'm going to worry about with that though is pairing up with CP3 because they, by all accounts, do not like each other right now. or anymore.
Yes.
They like throwing lobs. He likes throwing lobs.
And the good thing about that is he's going to be coming off my bench, and so the guy I'm hoping to get at point guard in the next few rounds here would, I think, also be another good combo on the open floor. So,
well, you get your choice at point guard now because me and Drew both got all ours filled out.
I do, yeah.
Unless we do something crazy and take one of them as a shooting guard or something like that. Whoever you're looking at, but it sounds like by all accounts, the guy you're looking to take might not be a shooting guard too, if he's running the open floor nicely.
No, yeah, he's definitely point guard.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good pick. Let's see what you do after that, with that. But I'm gonna take the last of the small forwards that I feel like are, Paul George and this guy that I'm about to take, and I know this is gonna piss Drew off, are kind of in the same second tier, and then there's a significant drop off after. I'm gonna take Carmelo Anthony. Can't let him slide in.
Come on, that was. I almost took him with when I took Wade. I'll be honest.
Taking Wade here.
Yeah, like you said, there's a drop off after Melo.
Big drop off, and I really wanted to get that. I really wanted to get Melo to kind of. I knew Drew was looking. I really had a feeling Drew was going to take him next pick, so I'm like, yeah, I got to take him now. And then it's just a big drop off after that. So Melo, maybe another guy without the crazy team success, but you can't argue the fact that he's just one of the best scorers of this group, and that just kind of further insinuates just my team is just going to explode offensively. We may not have the best defense. It'll be all right with like Giannis and Dwight down low. Perimeter defense is going to be a liability, but offensively, I just have so much scoring. It's going to be crazy. And him coming off the bench, he can get a bucket anytime he wants from anywhere. And I like that. Him and Lillard. I like pairing him and Lillard together. They're on the same team now too, and the team hasn't been great, but they've seemed to pair pretty well.
It's a shame you're only going to have one basketball, Chris. That's.
I know. That's the knock on my team for sure there. I have another guy that I really want to fall to me, so I'm really hoping Drew doesn't take him. I will be absolutely furious, but because I just took his pick. So take it away, Drew.
Real quick, though, the one thing with Melo is obviously he kind of fell apart there towards the end of the decade with the OKC and Houston stuff and lacks the team success. So I do think it's a little bit bigger difference between him and George, but I guess George didn't really have that big of a lot of team success either. But George brings it on both ends of the floor, in my opinion. But
Melo doesn't do that, but he's the better scorer of the two of them in his prime.
So I'm looking at this, and I think I'm going to go back-to-back power forwards here because I don't know how much longer these guys are going to be available. So there's one guy here that, I don't know, in my opinion, he's a bit overrated, and I think if he wasn't on this team, I don't think he'd be as good, so I'm not going to take him. And these two guys, one guy has been just a really solid player the whole decade, and very underrated in my opinion, and I kind of want that. So what is this? The 21st pick, I'm taking LaMarcus Aldridge, the Portland Trail Blazers and San Antonio Spurs.
Great pick.
Made 7 All-Star teams, which is kind of surprising. 5-time All-NBA, which means he was 5 times he was one of the top 15 players in the league. Just a really solid player, double-double machine. Even though he might not be the flashiest player, I got a lot of flash on this team, and I need a solid backup power forward. I think he can really kind of shore up that position. So I'm really happy about that pick.
He's actually your starting power forward, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's my starting power forward. That's right. My bad.
See, I actually have Aldridge a lot lower than like some. He's number 8 on my list right now, man. I don't know. I've never been the biggest Aldridge guy. He's a really good player, but he's never that he's never been that MVP caliber player to me. I don't know. I think a lot of these other guys have been that at some point, but I just really don't see it with him. I guess he's just more solid to me. Which is what. Yeah,
I don't. I mean, I already got enough MVPs on my team. I don't need any more MVPs. I just need a solid player, kind of like Gasol. He's an underrated shooter, so he can kind of stretch the floor, right. Decent defensively, and I feel like they can bring it out of him every night. I'm looking forward to that. Ryan seems to approve that, so I'm happy about that.
Yeah, Drew, I'm glad you said that he's underrated because he's really underappreciated this decade. You want to talk about just consistency? He's up there with Gasol. He just brings it night in, night out. No problems in the locker room. Great score on offense, decent on defense. I'm just confused as to why Chris has as many players ahead of him as he does. So I'll be interested to see who he's got in front of him.
Yeah, you definitely. I think there's stuff he's like. You can kind of. I don't know. The power forward position is kind of just AD, and then if you want to consider Giannis power forward as well, I feel like they're kind of in their own And for me, the rest are just kind of, I could take any of these guys. But Aldridge is right at the end for me, and I don't see myself moving him up at all. But he's still good.
Fair enough.
Players are good.
So with this next pick, I need to get it. I need like I said already. I need some more adults in the locker room, some more champions. I got a lot of volatile personalities, so I want to get someone steady. And I got two guys here who their peaks were definitely prior to the decade, and one of them is probably my favorite player of all time, but I'm not going to take him because he only played 6 years, and he actually only won 1 championship throughout this decade, which was kind of surprising. So with this next pick, my backup power forward, I will be selecting probably my second favorite player behind the guy I really want to take, Dirk Nowitzki of the Dallas Mavericks.
It's a good pick.
5-time All-Star, 1-time champion there in 2011 with the Mavs. Won the Finals MVP, was really good that year. Made 2 All-NBA teams as well throughout the decade. Like I said, his peak was very much before the 2010s. But I'm happy to get him here, especially this late. I actually had him 1 spot above Aldridge, but they were kind of like interchangeable there on my power forwards list. So, like I said, he's a champion, knows how to get it done. He can provide some scoring there off my bench. He was kind of a shell of himself that last season or two, but I'm really happy to get him this late in the draft.
Yeah, Dirk, that's a good pick for sure. I have him up at number 4 on my big board, so that I was thinking about. He was in my discussion for my next pick here. It's definitely a good pick. He provides great outside shooting, really good, post moves. Not the best defender, but power forward usually. I mean, it's not as strong of a position, so you don't need as good of a defense guy there. It's a good pick for sure.
Yeah, probably the greatest European player right now as it stands. We'll have to see what Doncic does throughout his career, but I like the pick. The only concern I have here is he did kind of tail off after that championship season. He kind of, he was getting older, and that's understandable. But great scorer, great rebounder, one of the best big man shooters of all time. So great pick, Drew.
Yeah, and he could still score there, even there when he was kind of a shell and was kind of just walking up the floor. He could still hit the 3, hit his fadeaway. So maybe towards the end of our run here in the 2010s or whatever, he can just kind of come off the bench and provide some scoring from 3. But I think he kind of pairs nicely too with the rest of my guys on my team, and he's kind of a nice kind of complement to Aldridge. As Aldridge kind of is more of a down low who can kind of come out and shoot a little bit of a jumper, and Dirk could kind of shoot the 3. So it's nice. I like that. And again, he's going to put some butts in the seats, and that's all this is about.
Right, that's for sure. I'm going to jump into my next pick. I'm going to take my backup center here. I feel like this guy's been has slid a little bit down everybody's big board. I actually was hoping to get some of the guys down to lower on my list, but I feel like I can't ignore this player. This player's greatness over the decade. Maybe not a lot of team success, but I feel like Boogie Cousins has got to be the pick here, man. He's just another walking bucket at the center position. I feel like he's a good backup to Dwight Howard. Not that great of a defensive center, but he can come off the bench and just absolutely light it up from basically anywhere on the floor. He's a great scorer and a great player when he's not hurt, at least.
Yeah, I'm glad you took him because I did not want to take him as my backup center. So I'm glad you took him.
It's fair.
Yeah, I
didn't really want to take him either, but he just kind of held to me. I feel like I had to.
Yeah, the locker room he's not a great locker room guy, and he does have those injury concerns, but you can't deny the fact that he's probably one of the greatest scoring centers in this decade when he's healthy. So I like the pick.
And he averaged well over 10 rebounds over the decade too. So, he's good. He's a good rebounder at both sides of the ball. Maybe not, like I said, not the best rim protector, but I feel like it's a good complement to my starting center in Dwight Howard. Pretty much the exact opposite player. And I like that.
Yeah, I mean, you got the 2 most volatile centers in the NBA this decade for sure.
Yeah, they're going to be throwing hands a lot, but the rest of my team I feel like is pretty steady.
Yeah, I mean, I think he would have hands down been the best center of the 2010s had it not been for those injuries that kind of caught up to him. And I probably, when I said I was happy you took him, it's more so because I didn't really want to take him, and if he was still there when I get my next picks here, I probably would have ended up taking him because I kind of had to because he was still available. But yeah, I mean, he was by far the best center in the league there before these past 2 or 3 years when the injuries kind of caught up to him. But I mean, when he was with New Orleans, I mean, he was arguably better than Anthony Davis. I mean, you could make a case there.
Right.
Because he can shoot, he can kind of jump out, shoot the three, and when he kind of is motivated, he's by far the best center that we've seen this decade. But yeah, so
Right.
decent pick.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Ooh, all right. Well, it seems my theme for this, for my bench is get a bunch of players who are not healthy most of the time. I'm going to continue with that. I'm going to take John Wall. I think pairing him up with Blake Griffin in the open floor would be pretty electric if they can stay healthy.
Wow. I had him on my list, but there is I need you to make a case for him a little bit more because I have a couple guys
Okay.
I thought I just kind of threw him on my list as like a break the glass pick, you know.
He did
Okay, well,
move up my board. He did move up my board as I did some more research because I forgot how good he was there the mid decade. But yeah, I'm kind of with Chris. He was lower on my board than some other guys.
Well, before he fell down his stairs and like tore his ACL and all that stuff happened.
Did he slip out the bathtub or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. Before he started breaking all of his bones in his body at his house, people forget how good of a player he was. I mean, you want to talk about great athletes at the point guard position. John Wall and Russell Westbrook are definitely up there as like the top two. He's electric in the open floor. People forget how great of an on-ball defender he was. He made all-defensive team 2014, 15. That was before he got hurt. I mean, he's a flashy assist guy. I also think people overlook his distributing. I think he's great, getting the ball out in the open floor and finding open teammates as well. So I like him on the defensive end. I think he's really athletic, and I think I don't know. I just think in the open floor, pairing him with Blake Griffin, I think it was the right move.
I don't hate that pick. I don't hate the pick with the theme of your team for sure. I'm kind of just I'm curious. This isn't me besmirching your recent pick. I feel like in the modern NBA, I don't know if your team has enough shooting, hang. Like I don't think you have any of those besides Beal, which I mean he's definitely a good shooter. I wouldn't say he's an elite shooter. You have a lot of these guys that probably shoot about 30% from the 3-point line. So I'm just I don't know. I'm concerned about that. Your team's defensive impact would be unbelievable. And John Wall is one of the best defensive guards of the decade. There's no arguing that for sure. And a freak athlete.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
You can go, Ryan.
I was just gonna say, yeah, the shooting is definitely a concern, but I don't know. Like you mentioned, the defensive ability, I think there are guys on the team. Yeah, they're 30% in the 30s career 3-point shooting percentage, but when you need them to knock down a shot, I believe I'm confident some of these guys to make shots. So I don't know. I like my team from a defensive standpoint, but yeah, you're right. Shooting is definitely a weakness. So
yeah, and he was I think probably one of the most behind maybe D Rose, one of the most and maybe probably Westbrook too, the most explosive point guard this decade. And a lot of people, including myself, like I said, he was a lot lower on my board. And then he kind of moved up a little bit after.
He did move up mine as well.
Yeah, I did some research. So
first he wasn't even on my board, and then I ended up moving him. I took some guys off and I deleted a bunch of my names on the point guards and moved him up after looking at some of his career accolades.
So yeah, good pick. I'm worried who you're going to take here, Ryan, because I'm worried you might take my pick. But who you taking? I think this is the second to last round, right?
Yep.
All
right. So 9th round.
Oh man. Let's see.
You need a small forward and a shooting, or a
small forward and center. Yeah.
Yep.
We need one more thing too, right? You got 3 picks left.
No, just 2 left. Thinking about maybe taking another shooting guard and moving somebody to small forward. I could do that.
Oh yeah, 2. I don't know how to count. You're right.
Okay, this is kind of a surprise pick. I'm gonna take arguably one of the best shooters in this decade. I'm gonna take Kyle Korver, lockdown shooter.
Wow!
So
off my board.
He was okay. Let me bring this out real quick. He was on my board because I love Kyle Korver, and here we go, represent Kyle Korver right there. I got an autographed basketball of his in my room. He was like the guy that in high school when you got that guy that you kind of watch that you kind of want to emulate your game after. He was my guy, just a guy who was white and could shoot a 3. And I put him on my board because I just love him so much. And he actually kind of moved up a little bit after I did some research, but I thought I might have been able to snag him there as my small forward, and you guys would be surprised. But so I'm happy you took him, Ryan. I'm happy he gets some respect because he's a legit, amazing 3-point shooter.
Yeah, it's definitely a surprise. I'm interested to see what Chris has to say about this.
I mean, Corver, there's no arguing he's one of the best shooters of the decade. I'm definitely not arguing that. And it fits well on your team. You really need somebody like that on your team. But I didn't even think about him in terms of he wasn't even like I didn't even have a single shred of a thought of him on my team. My picks aren't super long, so maybe he could have snuck in there in the teens somewhere for me.
Yeah, he was. Let me see. He was 13th on my board. So I had about 15 guys for each position. He was 13th on my board. But yeah, I love him. So I would have taken him probably had it not been for you. Right.
Right. Let's see. I'll jump into my next pick, man. There's a guy I really want to take, but after it's a guy. I actually thought Ryan was gonna go with this guy over Corver when he said one of the best shooters of the decade, but I don't think I'm gonna take this guy. I think this is almost a little mini tilt pick here that I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna go with DeMar DeRozan, man. I think let's go. He's just maybe he doesn't have the outside shooting, but I already got a ton of that on my team. He's just a guy that can come off the bench, and I don't really have that slashing guy coming off the bench, and because Melo, he's not going to be doing much of that. Lillard can do it, but he's not great at it. He's not some athletic monster. DeRozan is that guy that he can get it done when he takes it to the basket. He's one of the best mid-range and inside scorers or has been one of the best of both of those in the NBA for the decade, and he's also a very good defender. So I like him a lot.
I can't believe he did that. Because I was gonna put him at small forward. He was gonna be my backup small forward. And I was looking forward to it. Man,
that's too bad.
But yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it all there. And I thought I'd be lucky there because when you said one of the best shooters, because when you think about the three ball, he can't really shoot the three that well.
Right.
But arguably one of the best. I mean, it's not saying much, but like second best, maybe probably third best Raptor of all time. Really kind of underratedly kind of helped them win that championship because kind of set them up for the success that they got when Kawhi showed up. Seems like a really lovable, good guy, and I'm very disappointed that I didn't get him there.
Let's go. I'm happy you're disappointed for sure. Absolutely ecstatic. All right, Drew, go ahead and make your last two picks here, man.
Right, so here's my last two picks. I think I need a center and a small forward. So small forward, obviously, like I just said, I was going to take DeRozan. And I'm looking at this right now, and my heart is telling me to take one player, and my mind is telling me to take another player. But I'm looking at this, and I feel like I got enough older guys on my team that kind of didn't really peak during the decade because you got you got Dirk, Dwayne Wade already, and I can't really afford to take another guy who's older, even though I feel like it definitely get me a lot of people love this guy. And I feel like it definitely helped me out with the polls and the rankings and people what they think of my team. But my heart's telling me, or my head's telling me, I think I'm going to go with Andre Iguodala here as my backup small forward.
That's an excellent pick. I really like that pick.
One-time All-Star. He was really good there with Philly and Denver, kind of like an All-Star level guy each year at the beginning of the decade, and then of course went to the Warriors and was still an all-star level player there until he kind of took a back seat and helped them win championships. Won 3 championships, won 1 Finals MVP because he locked up LeBron. 2-time All-Defensive player as well. Just a really good defender. Good three-point shooter, not a great free throw shooter though, but a good leader. And I think I'm happy with the pick.
Yeah, that's a good pick. If he was on Ryan's team, that's just another guy that would just further insinuate that his team just is not going to be scored on very much. But
did you need another small forward, Ryan? Were you looking at
Aldridge was my first small forward off the bench. So I had him as my first option. I kind of looking back at it now, I'm really disliking this Korver pick. I'm thinking like, what the hell was I thinking? But I was gonna pick Iguodala, but he can't shoot, so that wouldn't really.
He's a 30% shooter from 3, but he's not a great shooter.
He can't shoot the free throws.
He's really streaky. I mean, corners is about it from him from 3. So, and he's streaky.
He does have one of the most aesthetically pleasing jumpers of mine. Like, I love his shot. It's like a rainbow, and if it goes in, it's just
it's got a ton of art. It's kind of ugly to look at, in my opinion.
I like it.
Ugly, yeah.
I think it's aesthetically pleasing to me when it goes in.
Yeah, I mean, he's a winner. He's a leader, and I do need a little bit more defensive help on my team. Outside of, I guess Westbrook's a good defender and Durant's a good defender, but like Harden's not great. Gasol's good too, but I don't know. I need some more defensive guys, I think. And he was the last. I had him in like the Paul George, Carmelo Anthony, and him tier. And obviously I was going to take DeRozan, but I'll take Andre. I'll take Andre. All right, so with my last pick of the draft, I need a center. There's, in my opinion, two clear guys that I'm looking at right here. And it's very tough. I don't know who I don't know who I want to take. You know what? I'm going to go with a guy who will probably put some butts in the seats. He's a big name. Kind of fell off here the last couple years, but actually, I'm going to change my pick. Never mind. This guy's a steady force. 4-time All-Star, made one All-NBA team, All-Defensive team, a really good leader. Led the Hawks and the Celtics a couple playoff appearances. I'm going Al Horford here with my final pick of the draft. I called an audible there because I was looking at this other guy, but I don't know. I feel like as an all-around player, Al Horford's better, so I'm going to go with him.
See, Horford on my list, I don't know, man. I was never really a big fan of Horford. He's not even on my list. Not because he wouldn't make it. He's over some of these guys. I just didn't want to draft him. I don't know. I'm not crazy about him. But it's not a terrible – he's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. He's a very good player. I just don't really like him.
Yeah, Drew, you got some really steady forces on your team. Talking about Gasol and Horford, that's just consistency right there. I really like the pick.
I just need some consistency. I mean, I felt like I just kind of went to my plan. I wanted to take some superstars early and then just kind of get some steady, consistent guys there in the back end, and kind of worked out.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, like I said, it's not me destroying your pick or anything by saying he wasn't on my board, because he definitely is a top 5 center of the decade. I don't really like him that much, but he's a steady, consistent player. He's just kind of boring to me, I guess.
Yeah, but he's a good player, and he can shoot the 3 too. He's a good leader. I like him. Personally, I like him.
So I guess I'll jump into my last pick here. You know, I'm deciding. I need a power forward. I'm deciding between two guys. I'm gonna throw a shout out to Tim Duncan. It's not gonna be my pick here. I'm not gonna take.
He was. When I was talking about my favorite player that I wanted to take. When I took Dirk, Tim Duncan was the guy I was talking about. It's just he just wasn't around for that long. That's why.
Right. And you know, this is honestly kind of. It's really not that much of a different pick if I end up going with this dude. You know, I'm deciding between the more boring guy. I think Drew was talking about this guy earlier when he said this player wouldn't be as good if he was on a different team, which I kind of agree with that. He's a very, very good player, like the 4th option for his team, though. So I think I'm going to refrain from that. And I'm going to get a little firepower. And one of my favorite players of all time, part of the original Big Three, I'm going to take Chris Bosh. I think that's a player that's very underrated, and I'm a really big fan of his. So, you know, just a pure athlete on the offensive side of the play. You know, maybe a little bit out of his prime there, but you know, he's a big part of their championship wins, and just a very good player to me.
Yeah, I mean, he was on my board. He was lower than a few guys that are still left.
Me too. Same here.
I think if he hadn't got, and it was the blood clots, right? His health, that was the health issue he had. I think if that didn't happen, I think he would have probably been one of the first few power forwards taken, because I think he was really starting to kind of put up the stats again once LeBron left. That year that after LeBron left, those few years, he was actually a really good player.
A beast. Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate what happened, but he's another one of my favorite players personally, and I'm glad you took him, Chris. Gave him a nice shout out. But. Yeah,
and there's definitely some guys on my I'll even kind of show I'm not going to show my full hand, but they're like Duncan way ahead of him on my list. He's 7th on my big board. You know, he's one of the last power forwards on my big board. So like, you know, he's not up there as much. That was more just I just really enjoy him. You know, it's my last pick. I want to give him a little shout out here. You know, I miss watching him play, and I'm sad his career got cut short by a pretty devastating injury.
Nice. All right, Brian.
Yeah, I'm going to end the draft probably with some controversy again, the same way I started.
Oh, gosh.
I'm going to take a guy who hasn't been in the league very long, but, I mean, he's had some injury concerns, but you can't deny his pure talent on both sides of the ball, and he's just a dominant presence inside. I'm going to go with Joel Embiid to end the draft.
All right. I mean, he was not the center that I was I said I was debating between two centers. He was not the guy. but he was not too far behind. I think, of the centers still left on the board, I had 3 guys above him, but he could realistically kind of jump 2 of those guys, in my opinion. So I think by far one of the most talented centers we've had this decade. But like you said, serious injury concerns, and he just, his career started 2016. After once he really first kind of got on the court, so it wasn't around for too long. But yeah, decent pick.
Oh, yeah. And on Embiid, I think he's a little bit overrated in terms of just he thinks he's better than he is, and he's not really a locker room guy or anything. But in terms of just pure talent, he is definitely up there on my list. I know Drew said he had a couple guys in front of him. He would have been after I picked Cousins. He would have been, if Cousins wasn't there, I would have taken Embiid. He's 5th on my list. There's a guy in front of him, but I think I'd have taken Embiid since I took Howard first round. So that's an excellent pick. Just a scoring machine on the offensive side.
Yeah, with Embiid, I think definitely the talent's there. I just don't the longevity. I didn't really. I kind of knocked him for that. That's why he was.
Yeah, I did
he was
too.
He was 9th on my board, so he was still up there. But yeah,
good pick, and that caps off the draft for us. That was a lot of fun, guys. I definitely won the draft. Like, let's be honest.
All right. Hey, real quick, do you guys want to do? We didn't talk about this, but do you guys want to do like a draft a head coach real quick to kind of coach your team?
Yeah, sure, we can.
All right.
Really quick, Ryan can start us off because he threw the last pick. We'll snake right back around and we can do a quick coach.
Well, I'm gonna go Greg Popovich, greatest coach of all time, in my opinion. So I can't pass up on that.
Good pick.
And then
Good pick.
I'm next. I'm gonna take my 1 and 2 guards. Head coach, one of the best coaches of the decade. Just got to see him on a bunch of interviews over the Jordan documentary. I'm going to take Steve Kerr. I think he can handle all these personalities.
That's nice. I wanted him. So I'm going to go with. No, I'm just kidding. Because we talked about before, if I say a joke pick, it's going to actually count. I was going to say let's do Scott Brooks just to kind of team up with OKC Thunder, but I'm not taking Scott Brooks. No thanks. I think I'm going to go with Eric Spoelstra, probably my favorite coach in the NBA right now. I think he's just a really underrated kind of coach. He's the one coach that didn't get run out of town by LeBron, so that's kind of, you got to give him some props for that. And I think he's kind of underrated there for a while because he kind of won the championships with LeBron. But then if you look at what he has done recently with the Heat teams, kind of revamping that culture of kind of really kind of almost a grit and grind type of team, I think he can really do really well. Make a good defense, and he also knows how to handle egos. And I got a lot of egos on my team, as I've already said. So yeah, I'll take Eric Spoelstra.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I like him too.
So Ryan did kind of mention there at the beginning about trades. Does anybody want to make any trades, or is everybody happy with their team?
The one thing about trades though is because we do have a 10-player limit, so it kind of be just player for player. It'd only be 1 for 1. So
we could do like 2 for 2s. Or
yeah, we could do 2 for 2. Yeah,
I'm good with that. I like my team. I'm gonna stick.
Yeah,
with
I figured Chris was not gonna. Chris is confident in his team, so
I'm
pretty content with my team too. So unless you really want to blow me away with an offer for Marc Gasol, Ryan, I'm pretty happy with what it is.
I'm okay. I got Anthony Davis. So.
Yeah, it's a good point there. Yeah. Real quick, we're kind of up on some time here. We can just kind of mention some players. If you guys want to mention a couple guys at each position without we actually showing our big boards, we can do that really quick. Yeah, I'll start us off. A couple guys that I was considering. Kemba Walker, he was in the discussion for me a little bit at the point guard position, as well as Kyle Lowry. That was another guy I thought of. He's Kyle Lowry is kind of a steady guy, kind of boring to me, so I didn't take him. And guys like the shooter I was thinking about at the shooting guard position was Ray Allen. That was the guy I thought about taking just because I like him a lot, and he's one of my favorite players of all time. But I didn't go with him. I went with DeRozan.
Yeah, I had, so just to kind of let you guys, so I mentioned Lillard. I had him 9th. I had Lowry, Rose, and Tony Parker ahead of Lillard because Rose has an MVP. You got to put some respect on that, and he kind of rebounded a little bit here with Minnesota and Detroit the last couple of years. And Lowry, I just like Lowry, really solid player. And as I kind of showed with my last 2 picks, I like solid players. They're just kind of consistently good. And Tony Parker was a champion, another kind of quality player. But
I got him on my list too. I don't have What was the first name you said? I don't remember who it was, but I
I
don't
had
have
Lowry, Derrick Rose, Tony Parker.
Derrick Rose. Yeah, Derrick Rose. No longevity for him, so I didn't put him on the list.
And
How do
you
you-
mentioned Ray Allen too. Ray Allen dropped severely down my shooting guard list because I didn't realize he was only around for 4 years. He really
Right. No, I thought about taking him just because of honestly it would have just been for nostalgia and the fact that he made that awesome shot too, but I didn't go with him. Kobe was I'm surprised didn't get drafted actually. He was number 6 on my big board. I thought about taking him. I ended up going with DeRozan.
Kobe was the guy that I said for nostalgia or like because I like him. That's the guy that I wanted to take instead of Iguodala, but I already took Dirk and Dwayne Wade, so I needed to.
Right.
I needed to take a guy whose prime was at least mostly this decade because Kobe only played 2010 to 2016.
And no Tim Duncan either. No one took him. I thought about it for a second. Draymond Green was the guy you were talking about. That
Yeah, Draymond Green was the guy that I
wouldn't
said.
be as good if he wasn't on the Warriors.
He was 7th on my board though. So
He was 5 on mine, but I didn't end up taking him.
DeAndre Jordan was also the
Yep.
center.
I
I was
surprised he
debating
didn't
between
get drafted.
because Jordan. I just feel like he also kind of had that Green effect where he kind of benefited from being with Chris Paul in Lob City, and that's kind of how he helped because we have kind of seen that his career's kind of fallen off a little bit ever since he
Right.
left the Clippers. So I did kind of punish him for that a little bit. But Pau Gasol too, decent player. Give him a shout out. Paul Millsap, Kevin Garnett snuck on the bottom of my big board there because he was decent there with the Celtics to start the decade. Luol Deng, Rudy Gay snuck on.
I didn't have him on my list, but I should have.
Stuck on my small forwards in my top 10 because there was a steep drop off there in
Yeah,
small
Paul
forwards.
Pierce was that next guy after Iguodala for me, but I was not taking
Yeah.
him no matter what. I
Paul
would have
Pierce was the last guy on my big board for small forwards. He dropped severely because he really was rough there.
I think he's
the
an
last few
over. I
years.
think he's in general an overrated player.
All right, we don't have to get into that conversation. Right
Seriously
now, but,
overrated. But yeah, I don't really want to get into it anymore.
Joe Johnson too, real quick. Joe Johnson, I want to give a shout out to him. And then Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford, 6th man extraordinaire
Sweet
as a
Lou.
shooting guard, and JJ Redick. I like JJ Redick. Kind of the same thing as Kyle Korver. I just wanted to throw him on there. But yeah, Ryan, did you have any other thoughts about your big boards, guys that we didn't talk about, maybe, or anything
No,
like that?
you guys kind of mentioned it all there. So that was a lot of the guys I had too.
Did anybody have Victor Oladipo on their list?
I did. He was 9th. Oh, Manu too. We didn't mention Manu. I like Manu.
Yeah, he was on mine too as well. I didn't end up going with him, but I also had like Jokic, Towns, Drummond, but I wasn't going to any of them.
After Jordan, there was kind of like this weird like mix of like guys like Gasol, Gobert, Embiid, Tyson Chandler, Noah, Joakim Noah, Jokic, and even Drummond. Like guys that really weren't there for too long, and then a mix of guys who were really good but also kind of had injuries, kind of limit their career a little bit this decade. So I had a really weird mix of centers there in case you guys kind of screwed me.
Yeah.
I didn't get Mark.
I had a similar list of guys there, just guys that I wasn't really sure if I wanted to draft or not, but I threw them in there. I'm glad I got Howard and Cousins because after that, after Jordan, I thought there was a drop off for sure.
And also, real quick, two guys we didn't mention at all was Kevin Love and Paul Millsap too. Two solid players this decade as well.
Yeah, I forgot about Kevin Love, to be honest. It was kind of just ignorance. I don't know. He should have been on my list somewhere.
He actually would have kind of complemented my team nicely there with the outside shooting, but whatever. I'm happy with my team. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much it for this draft. Does anyone have any final thoughts they want to say?
No, that was fun, guys. I'm excited to see who ends up. Well, we probably won't get very many votes, but I'm excited. I think it's going to be really close. I think all of our teams are very good, and a lot of people made some excellent picks.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Ryan, do you have any final thoughts?
Guys, don't do my strategy of trying to make a team. I would just next time just go for the best available. It did not work out like I thought it would. But
See, I was just about to say, I actually think your team is. I actually like your team a lot, though. I think you
I
have.
don't know.
I just think the defensive impact on your team, and you still have a lot of superstars on your team. It's not like you were drafting like bombs. The Korver pick is the one that's gonna bite you in the butt because that was a very interesting pick.
Yeah, that was definitely a mistake. I was kind of freaking out because I didn't have any scoring off the bench, and I was like, "Oh, Kyle Korver, great shooter." That was a bad pick, but
But I do think your team can absolutely clamp up either one of our teams. AD was definitely, looking back at it though, AD would have been at least one of my top 4 or 5 just because of position scarcity. I think there's a significant drop off after him for any of those players, either at power forward or center. Even Giannis is a significant drop off for me.
Yeah, definitely.
So thank you all for watching and listening again. Make sure you kind of leave your comments down below about what you think about our drafts. Who has the best team? Who has the worst team? Were there any picks that really kind of shocked you? And again, we are the Zone Defense Podcast. We do a little bit of kind of a weekly news podcast thing that we did we did it actually a few days ago there about The Last Dance. That was cool. And we'll also do kind of cool things like this, whether it be a draft or we're talking about maybe doing some trivia stuff, maybe some tier lists as well. So stuff like that. So definitely be out on the lookout for that. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the Zone Defense Podcast on YouTube and Instagram, and then Zone Defense Pod on Twitter. I know this week we mainly did NBA stuff, but we are NBA and NFL. So next week we're going to start diving into some of the NFL divisions.
Probably doing NFL draft or something like that.
Yeah. Talking about free agency, NFL draft. I think the first division we talked about doing was the AFC East, and then just kind of go division by division. And then hopefully if NBA ever resumes play, we can start talking about that as well eventually. So be sure to subscribe to all our social medias, stuff like that. And if you haven't already watched the Last Dance episode we did, be sure to look out for that. And again, let us know what you think about the draft. But again, thanks for listening, and hope to see you again soon.
Peace.